Ladies and gentlemen, One Piece is back, and what a chapter Oda just gave us. All that month of waiting was absolutely worth it. I went into this chapter expecting some stuff about Greenbull, maybe some hints about Pluton, the Straw Hat bounties, and by the end of the chapter, I had forgotten about all of those things, and it did not matter because of all the amazing stuff we got in this chapter. So we got a lot to talk about. I'm gonna do my best to break it all down, but first, I need you to hit that subscribe button and join the King Pirates crew, because not only do we do this for every single chapter, but I'm gonna be making a ton of content this weekend based off of the stuff in this chapter, so you don't want to miss it. But to start things off, we're gonna be going out of order for this review because I have to start off with Shanks. Because even though we're always talking about Shanks and talking about like, oh, what if Shanks shows up and he comes to Wano, when it actually happens, we just never expect it. If you saw my live reaction, I was genuinely just shell-shocked and unable to process what was happening for a good 5 minutes. But man, when I saw that ship, I was just like, no way, Oda. You actually did it? Like the first chapter back from break, you're giving us Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates? It was just a mind-blowing experience, and everything from it was just incredible. Seeing the other Red Hair Pirates, Lucky Reuben, Beckman. By the way, the little interaction we got from Shanks and Beckman at the end was just amazing. I don't know what it was about Shanks saying, hey, Beck, but that was just so cool to me and just made everything incredible. But yeah, as far as the Red Hair Pirates go, the first thing we have to talk about is like their reaction to Luffy defeating Kaido and becoming an emperor. And essentially, they recognize that Luffy has become a great pirate now that he also holds the Yonko title that Shanks also has. So this confirms what a lot of us believed already, which is Luffy is that guy now. He's in that top tier, and he's definitely ready to reunite with Shanks. We'll talk about why they might not be reuniting in a little bit, because first off, there were a few little tidbits that I absolutely loved. Yasopp's reaction that he's not ready to meet Usopp yet was hilarious, not only just adding to his title of a deadbeat dad, but also gave me a lot of hope that we are gonna get a good amount of development in this relationship between Usopp and Yasopp. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. I'm also really looking forward to the explanation of the history between the Red Hair Pirates and Kid, because they go on to mention it here as well, so that's a good sign that we are going to get more of Usopp's Kid in the future and get more information about him. On top of that, we also got a quick little flashback of Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates stealing the Gomu Gomu no Mi from the CP9, and there was a lot of important information here. First off, the world government seemed to not know that the Gomu Gomu no Mi was actually an important fruit, or at the very least the CP9 themselves didn't know about it. So that answers a question I've always had, which was why was the Gomu Gomu no Mi only guarded by the CP9 if it was so important? But at the same time, once again, I can't help but feel like the Gorosei are just really stupid, because they mentioned in this chapter that they know it's a rubber fruit, and the Gorosei have literally said themselves that the powers of the sun god Nika fruit embodies the properties of rubber. So if you knew that information and you knew that the Gomu Gomu no Mi was a rubber fruit, how could you not put the two together, or at the very least be like, hey, this might actually be the Nika fruit, we should probably put more protection on it. So once again, the girls are just looking really dumb here in my opinion, but I guess it's happening so much now it's kind of consistent with the story. Now as far as Shanks' role in this, we don't really get any hints whether or not he knew that the Gomu Gomu no Mi was special. I do think ultimately he probably knew that it was special, or eventually found that out, but judging off what we saw in this flashback, it is entirely possible that things just kind of happen by chance, and there's several ways you can kind of make that interesting with like fate versus destiny, and also the will of the devil fruit itself. But if I had to guess, I would probably still bet that Shanks knew that the fruit was special, or found out about it eventually. Moving on from that though, let's talk about Shanks' next move, which is actually not to reunite with Luffy, but instead he's actually going to be leaving Wano to go to the town that Bartolomeo had taken over back in the cover page story. Now immediately when I first saw this, the first thing I did was actually go back and read that cover page story, because I wanted to make sure that like that territory was not like Elbath and we just didn't know. And after rereading it, it does still seem like a regular town, although Bartolomeo did defeat a pretty big looking dude. That person is still like way too small to be a giant. So I think what's actually happening here is that Shanks is really showing Luffy that he is a Yonko. Obviously him and the Red Hair Pirates have acknowledged that Luffy is a great pirate and that they're ready to reunite. But instead of going on to Wano and having this big celebration, Shanks is taking the other route of showing like, hey, you are on my level now, I'm gonna treat you as such. If you're gonna take over my territory, I'm gonna show that I'm also a Yonko and not just take that. And that's kind of exactly what I expect from Shanks. Like even when they first reunite, I fully expect them to just duke it out and really test each other. And we're gonna talk about this a little more when we get into the discussion on whether or not Shanks is evil. But as for why he's going after Bartolomeo right now instead of reuniting with Luffy, I think it's to really show his status and kind of just treat Luffy as an equal. The bigger question we do still have to answer though is why Shanks was in Wano in the first place. There's a couple of different options here. Maybe he was here to kind of just witness the end and see Luffy become a great pirate pirate and defeat Kaido and Big Mom. But the thing that doesn't really add in with that narrative is that it has been a week since Luffy defeated Kaido, so it'd be kind of weird that Shanks is still here after all that time. So the other option was that maybe he wasn't just here to observe, but instead like he was ready to help out at a moment's notice if Luffy were to lose. So that would explain why he stayed an extra week, to make sure everything was actually good and everything settled down. One thing that came to mind was the world government ships that were there before. They had their signal intercepted and someone was talking to them. It's like, hey, we're taking over. And initially we all thought that was just the Marines and Greenbull taking over. I think it's also possible that's when Shanks showed up and he was like, hey, you guys need to get out of here. We're taking over. We're not gonna let you interfere. And that would explain why the world government and the Marines didn't take action earlier and why Akainu seems to be hesitant in letting Greenbull go crazy. So that's just one little possibility of how things could be connected. I also think it's not impossible that Blackbeard is somehow involved as well, because we know he's also making a move. So maybe that's why Shanks showed up, to make sure nobody else interferes. Some people mentioned that Shanks might be after Pluton, but given that he's leaving already, I don't think he's after that. But yeah, as for why Shanks is in Wano, I think he really just came to witness Luffy become a great pirate and was ready to step in case anything bad happened, and maybe has something to do with the world government ships leaving. Which then gets us to the topic of evil Shanks, which everybody is talking about after that last panel of Shanks looking pretty devious. And if you guys watch my videos, you should know that evil Shanks is a theory that I've been strongly against for a very long time. And honestly, even after this chapter, I still don't think Shanks is evil. I am very intrigued on what his ultimate plan is and what his next move is, but Shanks being evil, I still don't buy it. Because first off, one of the biggest arguments for Shanks being evil was this idea that he was this ultimate pacifist, and that was why he was working with the world government to make sure the balance was in store and that Luffy wasn't getting ahead of himself. Well, in this chapter, the idea kind of gets debunked because Shanks straight up says that he's going after the One Piece, so he clearly has other goals. So the theory that Shanks is evil and he wants to keep the balance of the world because he's a pacifist, that's kind of debunked. And I always thought the idea was like really a narrative created by the community, because in the story so far, Shanks really hasn't done anything crazy to make him seem like keeping the balance in the world. In fact, I think you can make an argument that everything he's done was to help and save Luffy, which once again is another major reason I don't believe in evil Shanks, because at the end of the day, from beginning to end, when we saw him with the Roger Pirates to Fuchsia Village to even recently during Marineford, he's always been shown to be a good dude. And not only that, but as far as his relationship with Luffy goes, we know that he still bet his arm on him, he still believes in him, he was glowing when he was talking about him with Rayleigh. Every time Luffy makes progress, he's celebrating, he's super happy for him. Even in this chapter, he's reminiscing about all the good times with him and Luffy. So I think Oda is clearly just trying to bait us here because Shanks is such a mysterious character. But at the end of the day, I definitely don't think Shanks is evil, and if anything, the only thing I will believe is that maybe he bet on Luffy and gave him all this confidence because he wanted a rival to go after the One Piece. That is really the only perspective that I could kind of buy into in this whole Shanks is evil idea. But honestly, I think what's more likely happening is what I talked about earlier, which is Shanks treating Luffy as a guy on his level and as a proper rival. He's still a good guy, he still likes Luffy, he still believes in Luffy, but now that Luffy is on the same level as him as a Yonko, he wants to test him so Luffy can surpass him and be even better. Because after all, that was another promise that was made in chapter 1. Not only Luffy becoming a great pirate, but him surpassing Shanks and the red hair pirates and accomplishing the dream of becoming the Pirate King. So Shanks being more aggressive here and actually going after the One Piece and like retaliating against Luffy for taking over his territory, that's all to provide more competition for Luffy to be even better. And on the other hand, Luffy knows this as well. He said it himself, he wants to take down all the Yonko. Not one, not two, not three, but all four Yonko, which includes Shanks. So as far as Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates goes, there's still good vibes from them. I'm excited to see them reunite and Shanks just going all out, showing what he's capable of and being a proper rival to Luffy. With that said though, let's move on to the next topic, which is the stuff we got at the end of the chapter, which is all the information we finally got about the Reverie. Now in this chapter, I'm not gonna really do a deep dive because that deserves its own video where I can have some time to like really look at all the details. But let's still break down the info, starting off with Sabo assassinating King Cobra. Now as expected, King Cobra was the guy that ended up dying. He already had like a foot out the door, so it's not really that big of a deal. But Sabo assassinating King Cobra on the surface level just doesn't make sense. So why would he do that? And honestly, I think there's a pretty clear answer here. Sabo is definitely being framed. The Marines, as they're telling us this information, they're still going under investigation and trying to figure stuff out. But the Gorosei and the world government definitely know what actually happened, but they're just keeping them in the dark. Now, if I remember correctly, Cobra did want to meet with the Gorosei to really figure out the history of Alabasta and what really happened. So I'm guessing during that event or something leading up to the event, the assassination of Cobra happened. And the two options I see here is that either the world government killed Cobra and just straight up blamed Sabo for it, or it's also possible that Cobra was like put under control by some sort of weapon, classic like evil guy type of move, and then Sabo ultimately had to take out Cobra for some reason. Actually, now that I think about it, there is potentially a third option as well where Cobra like sacrificed himself and came up with a plan with Sabo. And the only reason I see him doing that is number one, to protect Vivi and the kingdom of Alabasta, and number two is to like pass along some important information that he just found out. So those are the three different directions I think it could go, but either way, Sabo definitely didn't just kill King Cobra just for the hell of it. Besides that though, we also found out that Sabo, along with the other revolutionary officers, were actually able to rescue Kuma. And the first thing I gotta say here is this is not looking too great for the Admiral versus Yonko people. Now of course it was a 4v2, but I will say I kinda expected more out of the Admirals. But at the very least, people should definitely start buying Sabo and the revolutionary officers stock. But getting back on topic, I am very interested to see what Oda ends up doing with Kuma, because there are several things connected to this. Like, it's kind of surprising that Kuma didn't have like an override button where like he wouldn't go with the revolutionaries no matter what. Of course, Jewelry Bonnie was definitely involved in this as well, given her connection to Kuma. So there's still some details that need to be fleshed out that I'll discuss in a future video. But I am really excited to see more of Kuma because I really did not expect us to get more out of him. But moving on from that, there was one final thing that we found out about Sabo, which is that his actions during the Reverie actually sparked flames of revolution across the world. In fact, 8 countries have already rebelled. They're cheering for Sabo, the Flame Emperor, so much so that Sabo's notoriety is starting to pass Dragon, which I kind of feel bad for Dragon because we already have so little information on this guy, and now Sabo's already passing him in fame. But yeah, as far as this situation goes, we were actually teased about it when we saw Sabo's face on like a building, so that kind of hinted like people are already celebrating him. At the same time though, it still feels like we're missing a lot of information here and things just don't quite add up. I guess the narrative could be like, hey look, the revolutionary army infiltrated the Reverie, declared war on the world government, rescued Kuma, and killed the king. Honestly, now that I'm saying it out loud, it might be enough to spark revolutions across the world because of that. Especially there was news leaked about Alabasta being one of the original 20 kingdoms of the world government. So I guess now that I think about it a little more, it does make sense why Sabo is like revered as like the icon. What still doesn't really make too much sense to me though is Dadan's reaction when she read about Sabo. Because now that we know the information, all the other reactions kind of make sense. Like Dragon freaking out, Ivankov saying like, hey, we need to like figure out the news and stuff. But Dadan's reaction still doesn't quite make sense because she specifically says, we just found out you were alive, and just bursts into tears as if you were like dead or at least captured. But in this chapter, all we found out was that Sabo is now an icon and it seems like he got out of there fine. So if that's the case, why did Dadan react like that? I believe Koala was crying as well. So there might still be some information missing here, like Sabo maybe did still get captured, or like he lost a leg or something and became paralyzed. But for the time being, let's move on from Sabo and let's talk about the other major headline that was revealed, which is that the attempted assassination was actually on St. Charlos. Now this was an absolute shock for me. I did not see this coming at all. I haven't seen any theories like saying that St. Charlos was gonna be the attempted assassination either. But if somebody actually did predict that, shouts out to them, they are a genius. But honestly, this bit of information makes perfect sense and it really ties everything together. Because once again, I think this is part of a cover-up. I think the world government might have tried to kill St. Charlos because he was one of the good celestial dragons and then try to blame it on Sabo. Another thing tied to this is Vivi, who currently has completely gone missing. So what could also happen there is that they try to kill Vivi and St. Charlos because he was protecting her. Because if you remember, he did end up helping Shirahoshi, who at that point had met up with Rebecca and Vivi as like a group. So there's several different ways that could have played out. Either one of the celestial dragons try to attack St. Charlos, or the world government themselves try to get rid of him. Now, as far as Vivi and what happened to her and how she disappeared, I actually have a pretty good idea of how that happened. I think either she ended up getting the help of St. Charlos, or even a better option would be Don Sai, because Sai was also at the Reverie as an attendant for his kingdom. And at that point, he had also met up with Rebecca and Vivi and Shirahoshi and got to know them as well. So what could have happened during all this is that the world government killed Cobra and blamed it on Sabo. And then of course they would try to go after Vivi as well, but then Don Sai and then maybe St. Charlos stepped up and helped her. And then from that point on, Vivi could just get out of there with Don Sai. Maybe she comes to Wano and reunites with the Straw Hats, where it happens later. Eventually, I definitely do expect Vivi to reunite with the Straw Hats at some point. I also think she's not going to be able to go back to Alabasta because not only is it probably not safe there with nobody else to guard her, but after the events of the Reverie, Wapol was also leaking information to Big News Morgans, and the only bit of information he could have is that Vivi was a pirate that traveled with the Straw Hats. So now with that information leaked, Vivi is probably also a wanted criminal, so the only thing she can really do is go back to the Straw Hats. So overall, those are my early thoughts on this. Like I said, I'm going to do a full video really breaking down all the information and try to get some more answers. But all in all, I'm really happy with this information. I'm excited to see more from Kuma. It seems like Sabo was able to get away, so we don't get Ace 2.0. Vivi seems like she's going to be reuniting with the Straw Hats soon, and also the world is starting to turn. There's more revolutions, and we're going to the final saga. With that being said, though, let's finally get to the beginning of this chapter, which really wasn't even bad. It was great. It's just that the rest of the chapter was phenomenal. But yeah, we got to start off by talking about Greenbull, who really revealed what type of person he was. The guy is a menace. I said it like many times already. He's on demon time, but he's even more of a demon than I thought. He pretty much has like absolute justice. He completely believes in the centralized government really controlling everything, and he is out for blood and trying to just take everybody out. And honestly, I kind of love it. It makes me more interested in his character and how he came to have this sense of justice. And I feel like Akainu did really need this type of guy to serve under him, to really have like a dog in his back pocket. Besides that though, from what we see in this chapter where he's like literally gassing up the celestial dragons, I think we could fully debunk the theory that Greenbull is like Zoro's dad or from Wano. At this point, he's really not showing a single sign that he has any connections to Wano besides the fact like he has a sword. So that theory I think is pretty much dead, although I still think Zoro is probably gonna fight Greenbull in the future. His powers also got revealed in this chapter. He has a forest fruit that's also a Logia. That I kind of didn't see coming because Logias usually are like a natural element like fire, lava, or ice. For it to be straight up like a forest instead of like the tree fruit is kind of weird. It feels like more of a paramecia. But yeah, in this chapter, he's busting out the moves. He does his best King Bomb impression as well. Luckily for Wano though, the Scabbers caught wind of this really quick, and Nekomamushi, Inuarashi, Denjiro, Kawamatsu, Raizo, and Shinobu all showed up to confront him. And that right there is already a squad. Like Inuarashi defeated Jack the Drought. So although Greenbull did his thing, he didn't really do any damage. They all just dodged his attacks. And this goes back to what I've been saying for a while, which is that Greenbull by himself is not going to be able to do anything against this alliance. This alliance just took down 2 Yonko and the Beast Pirates. Greenbull by himself is not going to be able to do that. In fact, as we learned in this chapter, he teamed up with another admiral and could not even defeat 4 revolutionary officers. So there was no shot, in my opinion, he was taking down the entire alliance. The only thing I thought might have been possible is like capturing Robin by like sneaking in. But at this point, the Scabbers already found him. Yamato comes through as well, and she just absolutely decks him. Momonosuke also shows up. He tries to bite him, but he wasn't really able to do anything. But already, as we're seeing, with just this much manpower, Greenbull is gonna have to get held back. So at this point, as far as Greenbull's role in Wano goes, I don't think he's gonna cause any issues. I don't think we're gonna get Luffy captured or Robin 2.0, which I absolutely am happy about. But it will be interesting to see how things play out, because Momonosuke does tell Yamato to stay out of this, kind of like showing that he's got this under control. And the only way I see him doing that is number one, having Zunisha pull up and just smacking Greenbull with his trunk, which is definitely entirely possible. But the other option is one I've been saying from the beginning, which is negotiations. Not only from Momonosuke's side, because it seems like he wants to control this and he could say to Greenbull, we're gonna keep Wano closed, so if you don't bother us, we're not gonna bother you. But also from the Marine side, we've seen Sakazuki tell Greenbull to like calm down and saying like, hey, just deliver your mission and do your thing. So I'm thinking Greenbull's actual mission here is to actually just negotiate, maybe trying to get some weapons, and that's it. And I think that makes perfect sense. Clearly he's undermanned. Sakazuki has from the beginning said that he does not want to get involved with Wano, and also the red hair pirates are right there, and they might have had a conversation with the world government, so that could affect it as well. Either way though, guys, you already know this was an absolute banger of a chapter, one of my favorite chapters in a long time. Oda did not hold back, and there's still so much good stuff to come. We need more information. The Straw Hat bounties still have yet to be revealed. Pluton, we need more information there. That's gonna do it for this chapter review. If you made it this far, you're probably had a good time, so please drop a like for the YouTube algorithm. But if you don't want to make it easy, let's play a game of rock, paper, scissors. If you lose, you have to like, subscribe, and watch the next video. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot!